Hi, you're welcome again. I'm Pastor Mark Darko, and I'm continuing my series on gender relations and social cohesion. In the first video, we discussed, I actually made a statement that, in my opinion, men are the most endangered species of our time. And I explained why. I talked about the fact that women, because of the rise of femininity, have arrived at a point where they are now on the offensive and women are on the defensive. Now, I am continuing now to just share a few more statistics on what is really happening. Um, According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, men are four times more likely to commit suicide, or more men commit suicide. The rate of suicide amongst men is four times more than with women. So we it's a social problem, and we need to solve the problem. We need to find out why. Why are more men committing suicide than women? You know, as I said in the last video, the socialization of men and women also contributes the way that we are socialized, uh, the way that we are brought up, the things we are brought up to believe, the way we are brought up to act in society. Men talk less, men take action, men are not supposed to complain, men are not supposed to express emotions. So they keep all these things up in them. They keep their frustrations. They keep their disappointments. They don't feel like talking about them. And what this does to them is that it's like pent up. It's like a bottle in which you cork the bottle, and then the contents generate some kind of heat or gas. When it continues for a long time and there's no way of escape of the gas, the bottle will explode. So men explode. Sometimes they explode in violence. Other times they do violence to themselves in terms of suicide. So if you see that more men, are committing suicide than women, then we should seek as a society to find out why. We're doing everything to solve the problem of women. Since the feminist movement came and they fought for women, everybody joined in it. The society has joined in it. But today, the culture, a new culture is being uh, prescribed, and that culture is being prescribed by the press, by the social media, and by legislature, and that culture is going to rule the world for the next 50 years. That is how the world is going to look like. So it's important that since culture is prescribed, we all be interested in who is prescribing the culture and what kind of culture is being prescribed. We see the effects of the culture being um, being displayed in different demographic groups. But then let us get to the root of who is prescribing the culture and what is the culture being prescribed. All right. We also know that for men who are white men, 85 years and older, are four times more likely to commit suicide than men from other groups. Why? Why do older white men, 85 years and above, why are they more susceptible to committing suicide? This is a problem. Again, it's not a problem that many people want to know. It's not a problem that we hear because it's not politically correct, it's not socially correct, and it's not religiously correct to talk about these things. But we need to talk about them. Now, So what men are doing is leaving home. They are either being driven away or they leave home themselves. Now, so that when we look at the statistics today, we realize that, as I said the last time, 40% of homes are headed by females, which means that men are either not responsible in their homes or they are away from their homes. So if 40% of all households are headed by women, where are the men? Where are the men with whom these children were born? Okay. And then we also said that 19.7 million of American children are fatherless. They don't have any fathers. There's no one to teach them who a father is. There's no one to contribute to their lives what a father has to give. Now, so when you go to the General Social Survey, this comes from the General Social Survey. In 2018, 23% of all adult men did not have sex. 23% of all adult men didn't have sex. They abstained from sex. In fact, this is what people have turned, the people who are into the study of these events have termed the Great American Sex Drought. The Great American Sex Drought. 23% of men in America didn't have sex. What is happening? A lot of explanations can be given that, it's age as the age. But we know that men are able to have sex even at the age of 70. Abraham gave birth at the age of 100 years. Okay, so if more and more men are not having sex, why? Now, what happens to procreation? Will the human species survive when men refuse to go into marriage? When men refuse to have sex? When men are afraid of women? A woman must be courted. A woman must be approached by a man. And then the man will agree. That's the social construction. Very few women would like to go towards a man and tell them anything, that I love you, I want to, marry you. Very few. The social construction is that it's the man that has to approach a woman. But in our current society, men are afraid even to go near a woman because of the fray, the hype in the media about what women feel and what women have felt in the past. The things that they experienced in the past and which they didn't, they for one reason or another, they failed to say. Now they are saying it, and they are prescribing the culture of today and tomorrow. They are prescribing the culture without men, a culture in which a man has no voice, a culture that has been prescribed just by women, backed by the press and backed by legislation or legislature, and backed also by social media. So what is newsworthy? What is politically correct? What is socially correct? Just listen to any news item or read any news item, and you begin to pick up that today, if it has to do with a woman, then it's newsworthy, it's correct, it's concerning, it's alarming. Everybody should rise up. We have to solve the problem. But you see, the other problem that we are not looking at is that the men are not talking. They have problems that are not being solved. They have unmet needs. All right. So gradually, a kind of culture is being prescribed, and everyone is following that culture. The culture, a fatherless culture, a culture where men don't mean anything, a culture where men continue not to be heard because they are not supposed to talk, a culture where women can come up and say and accuse any man of anything, and they would have to be heard and they would have to be believed. They will have to be believed. Not only that, they would have to be heard. It's improper not to believe them. It's improper to challenge them and to say whether or not, to really try to find out whether or not they are telling the truth. So a woman comes up and says, 10 years ago, somebody sexually abused me. Now, at the time of the so-called sexual abuse, what was the culture of that time? Culture develops. Culture is not static. So 10 years ago, things that were not frowned upon by the society are frowned upon today. Now, if we just say that, okay, anybody can just bring back events of 10 years ago and begin to exact, revenge or to seek redress on what happened 10 years ago, when we don't have any accurate records of what happened 10 years ago, when the culture was different, when in fact the person that is complaining today had a very different impression at that time, had a very different feeling at that time. If we begin to judge people based on the culture of the past, of yesterday, we'll be making a serious mistake. We'll be pulling down people, and we would be going for people in leadership who are not competent. They are not competent, but they, according to the culture of today, they are on top. For instance, competence today is not anything that anybody looks at when it comes to elections, when it comes to the power relations, vertical relations. People would rather talk about race, the color of the skin. People would rather talk about sex, gender. So let's elect more women. More women. Let's elect more women. Let the colleges, the universities, enroll more women. So today there are about 60 female, 60% in the social sciences, 60% in all our universities. 60% are women. So what is happening to our society? We are destroying manhood. We are destroying fatherhood. We are destroying the role of a man. God created man in his own image. And when the Bible talks about man in Genesis chapter 1, man is Adam. The word translated man is Adam. So God created Adam in his own image. Male and female made he them. And he called their name Adam in the day they were created. So as long as God is concerned, both man and woman are called Adam, man or mankind. It is the man that gave the name Eve to the wife. So the Bible says that a man is in the image of God and also in the glory of God. A woman is created in the image of God, but 1 Corinthians 11 says the woman is the glory of the man. And Ephesians chapter 5 says that the man is the head of the family. The headship is not lordship. The headship is responsibility. The headship is care. The headship is education, how to educate a child to grow up and fit in society, to grow up and be responsible. Okay, so when the Bible says in Genesis chapter 6 that you shall teach this commandment to your children and to your children's children, in the Old Testament setting, the father was like the priest. The father was king. The father was the one who was supposed to ensure that the law of God was being taught into the family. The father was the one that's supposed to teach the children to know God. In the previous video, I said that the first God that a child knows is the father. And it's the father's responsibility to bring up the children to know God and to fear God. Today, fatherhood is being quenched, is being completely wiped out, because the feminist movement, in their quest for equality, think that we don't need men. We don't actually need men. We may need a sperm for artificial insemination, to give birth to children, but we don't need men. We don't need fathers. But they are wrong. The children need fathers. The society needs fathers. Okay, so when the Bible says that man is the head of the family, what the Bible is simply saying is that in every organization, there's the need for a head. Even when twins start a business, one of them would have to be the head. Two of them, any two-headed organization is a monster. There cannot be two people heading a family. God had to appoint one of them. And God created man and endowed him with the possibility of being the head of the family, of guiding and leading both his wife and children to walk in the Lord. Of course, it's true that men have failed in this responsibility. They have been irresponsible fatherhood. Most of the time when we talk of Jezebel and Ahab, we realize that Jezebel was created partly because Ahab was irresponsible. So anytime the man becomes irresponsible, the woman has to rise up and fill a vacuum. Yes, we get that. But there are many times where the women, powered by feminism, have actually rejected the leadership of men, to the point where, as I said in the previous video, marriage is likely not to continue for, in a time coming, in a very short future. Marriage might just end if the current culture is not being checked. If the society doesn't rise up to see that there's something wrong with the way we're going. The way we're going is extermination of the human race. It began by equality. We are all equal. Yes, God created man to be the head. It doesn't mean that a woman is inferior. No. God just made provision for leadership, provision for, the family, in such a way that the family will be provided for and the family will be brought up to know God. We talk about gender role differentiation. And I know that in many cultures, the customs and practices are such that gender role differentiations have been unfair to women. But you see, again, if we carefully observe the role of men in the past, or in all generations, if we really care to observe, to carefully look at it, we realize that it's the men that are dying there in the battlefield to protect the women. In the past, women didn't go to war. Why? Because the woman has the womb. She is the only one that can reproduce. She's the only one that can carry a fetus in the womb and bring forth a child. And the society, the human species needs to continue. The human species must not be extinct. So the woman has been given this very important role by God. God gave the woman a womb in which a child, a fetus can be incubated for 9 months and come out as a child. So in the past, the main role of men, the husband, was to ensure that both the woman and the fetus is protected. Both the woman and the child are protected. Right? So that society can go on. If you go back into the Bible, sometimes if 30,000 men go to war, sometimes only 1,000 may come back home. And women were not supposed to go to war. Today, women are fighting, struggling because of a feminist quest for equality. Women are fighting to go into combative roles in the army to fight, and they think that being prevented from taking certain roles in the army is discrimination, gender discrimination. What we forget is that there is a more important duty of a woman. The survival of the human species is more important. Yes, a woman can go to battle and fight and defend the motherland. But who is going to get pregnant? Who is going to carry a baby for 9 months and give birth to that baby? When women talk about, yes, their rights, okay? Their rights to their own bodies, yes, they might have their right to their own bodies. But when we begin to talk of childbirth, and a man donates a sperm to a woman, and the woman decides that the child that is developing in my womb, I don't want it, so I have a right to flush it out. So the society is saying that, yes, the woman has the right. It is her body. What about the man's sperm? What about the society? What about the community that needs that child? What about the role that God intended for that child to play in society? It could be the pregnancy could be through any means. But if you're a child of God and you believe in God, you believe that God could have prevented it, but allowed it for a purpose, then you would at least say that even if I was raped, I'm pregnant. It's bad, it's good, it's bad news. It's not good. But what if the child in my womb will become the next president of the United States? We see the example of Jesus Christ. His progenitor, Jesus Christ, his great-great-great-great-grandmother was the prostitute from Jericho. And the Bible is not shy to say, Rahab the prostitute, when she was saved, she ended up being the great progenitor of the Lord Jesus Christ. Let us look at Ruth, the Moabitess. Moabites were not supposed even to come to the community of the Jews. But Ruth happened to be the great-grandmother of David, King David, through whose generation Jesus Christ was born. So you never know what that child will be. You never know what God has planned for that child. But society has come to a point when we are saying that the woman's integrity, The woman's right to her own choices should override the common need of every society. As we keep on looking at this, we keep on watching, these things go on. And men sit down and do not talk. We are prescribing a culture that is dangerous for the human species. Again, we need to begin to talk. Join this discussion. I invite you, if you love this discussion and you love this video, I want you to like it, subscribe to the channel, and give us a feedback what you think. Join the discussion. And I want to thank again all those who make financial contributions to help us keep this video going. Let us talk. That's the beginning of the solution. God bless you.